The first time Sarah Thompson heard the weak mewing echoing through the dense undergrowth behind their rural Minnesota home on a frigid February morning, she thought it might be one of the neighborhood cats seeking shelter from the brutal winter storm that had been raging for 3 days. The sound that made her pause while filling the bird feeders wasn't the usual chorus of winter birds and creaking branches that had accompanied her morning routine for the past 12 years as a licensed wildlife rehabilitator. It was something fragile, something filled with desperation, and need that cut through the howling wind like a cry for help. Her experienced ears tracked toward a fallen oak tree where the sound seemed to originate. And there, huddled in a makeshift den beneath the massive trunk, she discovered a tiny bobcat kitten with underdeveloped hind legs and eyes that held a spark of determination, despite obvious malnutrition and exposure to the harsh elements. In that suspended moment between discovery and action, Sarah felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle in her chest. The ancient decision between rescue and natural selection that every wildlife rehabilitator faces when confronted with injured or orphaned animals. What she couldn't know then was that this single moment would alter the trajectory of multiple lives forever, binding one dedicated family, one special needs child, and one extraordinary wild predator in a connection that would challenge everything they thought they knew about the boundaries between human compassion and the profound bonds that exist between species. If you enjoy the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. Sarah Thompson had been working as a licensed wildlife rehabilitator for 12 years, but she'd never encountered anything quite like the scene that greeted her behind their family property on that brutal February morning. The 45-year-old mother of two had treated hundreds of injured and orphaned animals, from tiny songbirds to adult deer, but the sight of the malnourished bobcat kitten with obvious developmental disabilities triggered both her professional training and a deep maternal instinct that told her this creature needed more than standard rehabilitation protocols. The February storms in Minnesota had been particularly severe that winter, transforming the landscape into a frozen wilderness where survival became a daily struggle for even the most adapted wildlife. As a rehabilitator who had spent over a decade caring for animals affected by harsh weather conditions, habitat loss, and human interference, Sarah had developed an instinct for recognizing when immediate intervention could mean the difference between life and death for the creatures that found their way to her door. What she hadn't expected was to find herself caring for a bobcat kitten whose underdeveloped leg would prevent it from ever being successfully released back into the wild. The kitten's left hind leg was noticeably smaller and weaker than normal, clearly the result of developmental issues that would make hunting and survival in the wild impossible, even with the best rehabilitation care available. The kitten's tawny coat was matted and dull from poor nutrition and exposure, making its normally beautiful markings appear faded against the stark white snow. But it wasn't just the physical challenges that posed concerns. It was the kitten's obvious youth, and the fact that no mother bobcat had been located despite extensive searching of the surrounding area. Amber eyes tracked Sarah's movement with the intense focus of a wild predator, but there was something heartbreakingly vulnerable about the animal's obvious need for help. Its ears were alert and responsive, but its attempts to move revealed the full extent of the leg deformity that would change the course of its entire life. "Easy there, little one," Sarah murmured, her voice carrying the same gentle authority she'd learned to use with frightened animals during countless rescue situations over her career. "I know you're scared, but you're safe now." Sarah had dealt with orphaned wildlife throughout her career as a rehabilitator, but caring for a bobcat kitten with permanent disabilities presented unique challenges that required careful consideration of both the animal's immediate needs and its long-term welfare. The kitten was clearly too young to survive on its own, and too disabled to ever be successfully released, making it a candidate for permanent care under special licensing provisions. But there was something in those amber eyes that reminded her of the most rewarding cases she'd handled, a combination of intelligence and adaptability that suggested this kitten might thrive in a domestic environment despite its wild heritage. The bobcat wasn't just injured. It was completely dependent on human care for survival, but showed remarkable responsiveness to gentle handling and consistent feeding schedules. Moving carefully, Sarah retrieved her emergency animal care supplies from the house, knowing that stabilizing the kitten would require specialized milk replacer, heating pads, and a secure environment where a wild predator could safely recover while bonding with human caregivers. "Let's get you warmed up and fed," Sarah continued. Her voice, maintaining the nurturing tone she'd learned, was crucial when working with traumatized young animals who couldn't understand that help was available. "You're going to be just fine." The kitten's response was exactly what Sarah hoped for from an orphaned animal: immediate acceptance of human care, enthusiastic response to feeding, and rapid bonding that indicated successful adaptation to domestic life. But Sarah noticed something else. Despite its physical limitations, the kitten displayed remarkable intelligence and emotional sensitivity that went beyond typical animal behavior. The next several weeks unfolded like a carefully orchestrated rehabilitation process. Sarah worked with veterinary specialists to address the kitten's nutritional needs and evaluate the extent of its leg deformity, while gradually introducing it to the family environment where it would need to live permanently. When the kitten was strong enough to explore beyond its initial recovery area, Sarah and her husband Mark made the decision to integrate it into their household as a permanent resident. The animal, which they named Simba after his magnificent golden coat and regal bearing, would need to be licensed as an educational animal and would require specialized care for the rest of his life. "He's not just surviving," Dr. Jennifer Martinez observed during one of Simba's regular veterinary checkups. "He's thriving in ways that suggest incredible adaptability and intelligence." But the most remarkable aspect of Simba's integration into the Thompson family was the extraordinary bond he formed with their 12-year-old son, Ben, who had been diagnosed with autism and an immunodeficiency disorder that required constant monitoring of his health and emotional state. Ben had always struggled with social connections and communication challenges that made traditional relationships difficult, but his response to Simba was immediate and profound. The boy, who often found human interaction overwhelming, seemed to understand the bobcat on an intuitive level that transcended conventional communication methods. "Look at that," Mark whispered to Sarah as they watched Ben and Simba during one of their first interactions. "I've never seen Ben connect with anyone like this." The bond between Ben and Simba developed into something that challenged everything the Thompson family thought they knew about animal-human relationships. Simba seemed to understand Ben's medical needs on a level that was almost supernatural, often alerting Sarah and Mark to changes in Ben's condition before symptoms became apparent to his parents or medical team. When Ben's immunodeficiency caused episodes of illness or fatigue, Simba would position himself close to the boy and remain vigilant, refusing to leave Ben's side until his condition improved. The bobcat had somehow learned to recognize the subtle signs that indicated Ben needed medical attention or emotional support. "It's like he's reading Ben's body language and scent in ways we can't even perceive," Dr. Martinez explained during a consultation about Simba's unusual behavior. "Some animals have incredible sensitivity to chemical changes that occur with illness or stress." As months passed, Simba's role in the Thompson household evolved from rescued animal to integral family member and Ben's constant companion. The bobcat accompanied Ben during his homeschooling sessions, provided comfort during medical procedures, and seemed to understand the boy's need for routine and predictability in ways that even family members sometimes missed. Their daily routines became synchronized in remarkable ways. Simba would wake Ben each morning with gentle nudging, accompany him to breakfast, and remain close throughout the day, seeming to monitor Ben's energy levels and mood with the dedication of a trained service animal. "He's not just a pet," Sarah observed during one of her updates to the wildlife rehabilitation community. "He's Ben's guardian and friend in ways we never could have anticipated." But the strength of their bond would be tested in ways none of them could have imagined. If you enjoy the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. The morning that would change everything started like any other spring day at the Thompson household. Sarah was preparing breakfast while Mark got ready for work, and Ben was in his room with Simba, following their established morning routine. The kitchen window was open to let in the fresh air, and the familiar sounds of their rural neighborhood, birds singing, distant traffic, farm equipment, created the peaceful atmosphere that had made their property perfect for wildlife rehabilitation. What happened next unfolded with the terrible speed of accidents that leave families forever changed. A delivery truck, taking a shortcut through their rural road, startled Simba while he was exploring near the front yard. The bobcat, who had never shown any inclination to leave the safety of their property, bolted toward the road in a moment of panic that Sarah would replay in her mind countless times. The collision occurred before anyone could react. The truck driver, horrified by what had happened, immediately stopped and called for help, but Simba lay motionless on the asphalt with injuries that were clearly life-threatening. "Ben, stay inside," Sarah shouted as she ran toward the road, her rehabilitation training kicking in even as her heart broke at the sight of Simba's injured body. The bobcat was still breathing, but blood was pooling beneath him, and his left side showed obvious signs of severe trauma. The drive to the emergency veterinary clinic felt endless as Sarah cradled Simba's unconscious form while Mark drove and Ben sat in the back seat, silent tears streaming down his face. The boy hadn't spoken since seeing Simba's injuries, but his distress was palpable in the car's charged atmosphere. Dr. Susan Collins, the emergency veterinarian who examined Simba, delivered news that shattered the family's world. Multiple fractures in his already weakened leg, internal injuries that would require immediate surgery, and trauma so severe that euthanasia might be the most humane option. "I'm so sorry," Dr. Collins said gently, her professional compassion evident in her voice. "The injuries are extensive, and even with surgery, his chances of meaningful recovery are very small. Given his previous leg problems, he would face a life of constant pain and severely limited mobility." But Ben's response to the vet's recommendation was the most assertive communication he'd shown in months. "No," he said firmly, his voice carrying a determination that surprised everyone in the room. "Simba fights. Simba gets better. We help him." The conviction in Ben's voice, combined with his obvious emotional connection to Simba, convinced Sarah and Mark that they had to explore every possible option for their injured companion. If Ben believed Simba could recover, they would exhaust every resource available to make that recovery possible. "What would it take?" Sarah asked Dr. Collins. "What kind of surgery? What kind of care? What are we looking at for giving him every chance possible?" Dr. Collins outlined a complex treatment plan that would require multiple surgeries, months of intensive rehabilitation, and specialized care that would cost thousands of dollars with no guarantee of success. The procedures would need to be performed by orthopedic specialists with experience in wildlife medicine, and Simba's recovery would depend on his ability to regain mobility despite his pre-existing leg problems. "Even if everything goes perfectly," Dr. Collins explained, "he'll never be the same. His mobility will be severely limited, and he'll require ongoing medical management for the rest of his life." But Sarah and Mark had already made their decision. Ben's unwavering faith in Simba's ability to recover, combined with their own deep love for the bobcat who had become such an important part of their family, made the choice clear despite the financial and emotional challenges ahead. The first surgery took place at the University of Minnesota Veterinary Medical Center, where Dr. Patricia Hernandez, a specialist in orthopedic surgery, worked for 4 hours to repair the fractures in Simba's leg and address the internal injuries that threatened his survival. "He's a fighter," Dr. Hernandez reported after the surgery. "His vital signs remained stable throughout the procedure, and his response to anesthesia was better than expected. But the real test will be his recovery and whether he can regain enough mobility to have quality of life." The recovery process was grueling for everyone involved. Simba spent 3 weeks at the veterinary hospital, undergoing daily physical therapy and pain management, while his body slowly healed from the trauma of the accident and surgery. Sarah and Mark visited daily, often bringing Ben to sit quietly beside Simba's recovery kennel. During those visits, something extraordinary became apparent. Simba's response to Ben's presence was dramatically different from his response to medical staff or even other family members. When Ben was nearby, Simba's vital signs improved, his pain seemed more manageable, and his willingness to participate in physical therapy increased noticeably. "I've never seen anything like it," Dr. Hernandez observed during one of Ben's visits. "It's like Ben's presence activates Simba's will to recover. His progress accelerates whenever Ben is here." After 6 weeks of intensive medical care, Simba was finally ready to come home, though his recovery was far from complete. The bobcat's leg had healed but remained weak and painful, requiring ongoing medication and restricted activity that would limit his mobility for months to come. The homecoming was emotional for the entire family, but especially for Ben, who had maintained unwavering faith in Simba's recovery throughout the ordeal. The boy's first words when he saw Simba walking slowly but steadily into their house were simple but profound. "Simba came home. Simba is strong." The months that followed tested everyone's patience and dedication. Simba required daily physical therapy, medication schedules that needed precise timing, and constant monitoring to ensure that his recovery continued progressing. Sarah had to modify her wildlife rehabilitation work to accommodate Simba's care needs, while Mark took on additional responsibilities around the house. But Ben became Simba's most dedicated caregiver, sitting patiently through therapy sessions, helping with feeding schedules, and providing the emotional support that seemed to be crucial to Simba's continued improvement. The boy, who had struggled with routine changes and new situations, adapted seamlessly to the demands of caring for his injured companion. "Ben has found his purpose," Mark observed as he watched his son gently encouraging Simba through a walking exercise. "Taking care of Simba has given him confidence and skills we never knew he had." As Simba's physical condition stabilized, his role as Ben's protector resumed in modified form. Though he could no longer move with his previous agility, the bobcat continued to monitor Ben's health and behavior with the same dedication he'd shown before the accident. When Ben showed signs of illness or fatigue, Simba would position himself as close as possible and remain vigilant until the boy's condition improved. 6 months after the accident, Simba's recovery had progressed to the point where Dr. Hernandez declared him stable, though permanently disabled. The bobcat would always walk with a pronounced limp, would require ongoing pain management, and would never regain his full mobility. But he had survived, adapted, and maintained his extraordinary bond with Ben despite the trauma and challenges of his recovery. The true test of their continued connection came during a particularly severe episode of Ben's immunodeficiency disorder. The boy had been fighting a respiratory infection that wasn't responding to treatment, and his condition had deteriorated to the point where Sarah and Mark were considering hospitalization. At 3 in the morning, Simba began exhibiting behavior that Sarah recognized as his medical alert signal, positioning himself at Ben's bedside and making low vocalizations designed to wake the household. When Sarah checked on Ben, she found him struggling to breathe and running a fever that had spiked dangerously high. "Good boy, Simba," Sarah whispered as she called for emergency medical assistance. "You're still taking care of our Ben." Ben's hospitalization lasted 4 days, with Simba maintaining a vigil at the front window, refusing food and showing obvious distress at being separated from his companion. The Bobcat's behavior during Ben's absence convinced the family that their bond had not only survived the trauma of the accident, but had grown even stronger through their shared experience of recovery. When Ben returned home, weak but improving, Simba's response was immediate and profound. The Bobcat approached carefully, mindful of his own physical limitations, and gently touched Ben's hand with his nose in a gesture of greeting and reassurance that brought tears to everyone's eyes. "I missed you too, Simba," Ben said softly, his voice still weak from illness, but filled with the love that had sustained them both through months of challenge and recovery. If you enjoy the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. The story of Ben and Simba's extraordinary bond began attracting attention beyond their local community when Sarah started sharing updates about their recovery on social media platforms dedicated to wildlife rehabilitation and special needs advocacy. Videos of Ben helping Simba with physical therapy exercises and Simba alerting the family to changes in Ben's condition were viewed thousands of times by people inspired by their unique relationship. Local news outlets picked up the story, followed by regional television stations, and eventually national media interested in the remarkable connection between a special needs child and a disabled wild animal. The coverage highlighted not just their individual story, but broader themes of resilience, adaptation, and the healing power of interspecies bonds. What makes their story so compelling, observed Dr. Martinez during a television interview, is how they've both overcome significant challenges by supporting each other. Ben has found confidence and purpose in caring for Simba, while Simba has adapted to his disabilities by focusing on his role as Ben's companion and protector. The media attention brought unexpected benefits, including donations from viewers who wanted to support Simba's ongoing medical care and the Thompson family's wildlife rehabilitation work. The funds allowed Sarah to upgrade her facilities and expand her capacity to help other animals in need, while ensuring that Simba received the best possible ongoing care. More importantly, their story inspired other families dealing with special needs children and disabled pets to explore the therapeutic potential of carefully managed animal-human relationships. Educational programs developed around Ben and Simba's story were implemented in schools and therapy centers, demonstrating how animals could provide unique forms of support and companionship for children with developmental challenges. The Thompson home became a destination for researchers studying animal cognition and the bonds between humans and wildlife. Simba's ability to detect changes in Ben's health condition attracted particular interest from scientists investigating how animals perceive and respond to human medical conditions. Simba's sensitivity to Ben's health status appears to involve multiple sensory inputs, explained Dr. Rachel Kim, an animal behaviorist who studied their relationship. He's responding to subtle changes in scent, body language, and possibly even chemical signals that indicate physiological stress or illness. Ben's own development accelerated dramatically during the months following Simba's recovery. The responsibility of caring for his disabled companion gave him structure and purpose that traditional therapies had struggled to provide. His communication skills improved, his confidence in social situations increased, and his ability to handle change and uncertainty strengthened remarkably. Taking care of Simba has taught Ben skills that will benefit him for the rest of his life, noted Dr. Lisa Peterson, Ben's developmental specialist. He's learned empathy, responsibility, and problem-solving in ways that classroom instruction couldn't achieve. The educational impact of their story extended beyond therapeutic applications. Ben and Simba began participating in school presentations about wildlife conservation, disability advocacy, and the importance of compassion for all living creatures. Ben's natural presentations about his relationship with Simba helped him develop public speaking skills, while educating others about both autism awareness and wildlife protection. Their story also highlighted important issues in wildlife rehabilitation, particularly the complex decisions involved in caring for animals that cannot be released back to the wild. Simba's case demonstrated how disabled wild animals could thrive in appropriate domestic environments, while serving important educational and therapeutic purposes. 2 years after Simba's accident, both he and Ben had achieved levels of recovery and adaptation that exceeded everyone's expectations. Simba's mobility had improved to the point where he could move comfortably around the Thompson property, though he remained permanently disabled and dependent on ongoing medical care. Ben had developed into a confident, articulate young man whose special needs were managed through the structure and purpose provided by caring for his remarkable companion. The bond between them remained as strong as ever, with Simba continuing to monitor Ben's health and provide emotional support during challenging times. Their daily routines had evolved to accommodate both of their limitations, while maximizing their shared activities and mutual support. They've taught each other how to adapt and thrive despite their challenges, Sarah reflected during a follow-up interview. Ben has learned that disabilities don't define limitations, and Simba has shown us that wild animals can form bonds that transcend species boundaries when they are treated with respect and compassion. The plaque Sarah installed at the entrance to their property reads simply, "Home of Ben and Simba," proving that love conquers all limitations. It served as both a welcome to visitors and a reminder that extraordinary relationships could develop when humans and animals were given the opportunity to connect on the deepest levels of mutual need and care. Years later, when people asked Sarah about her most meaningful wildlife rehabilitation case, she would tell Ben and Simba's story, not just as an example of successful animal care, but as a demonstration of how disabled individuals, both human and animal, could find strength and purpose through their connections with each other. The bobcat, who had been found as a helpless kitten with developmental disabilities, had become a symbol of resilience, adaptation, and the profound healing that could occur when love and determination overcame physical limitations and social boundaries. Their story continued to inspire families, educators, and animal welfare advocates around the world, proving that sometimes the most meaningful relationships develop between individuals who understand what it means to face challenges that others cannot comprehend, but who find strength in supporting each other through every difficulty. The love between Ben and Simba had indeed conquered all limitations, creating a bond that transformed both of their lives and touched the hearts of everyone who witnessed their extraordinary friendship. If you enjoy the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.